The Pentagon has spent the last few weeks repositioning ships and aircraft in an attempt to turn down the temperature in the Middle East following Israel's assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and a senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut, actions for which both Iran and Hezbollah have vowed retaliatory strikes that could grow the conflict into a regional war. In response, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered a squadron of F-18 Super Hornets aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt operating in the Red Sea to move from the aircraft carrier to Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Photos of the VFA-25 Fist of the Fleet aircraft arriving on August 3rd show the strike fighters loaded with multiple AIM-9X Sidewinder heat-seeking missiles and AIM-120 AMRAAM medium-range active missiles, which indicates they intend to be used against drones and cruise missiles originating from Iran and other proxy nations. Countering these threats is something U.S. Navy carrier-based aircraft have become very proficient at in the months that carrier strike groups have been battling the Houthis in western Yemen, who've been attacking shipping transiting the Red Sea since last fall under the auspices of solidarity for the Palestinian people in Gaza. As reported by our friends at the War Zone, Muwafaq Salti is very centrally located in the region and has long been a key staging location for American air ops across the Middle East. Air Force F-15 Strike Eagles forward deployed there helped defend Israel against previous Iranian retaliatory attacks in April, shooting down more than 70 drones in total. TWZ also reports that the amphibious assault ship USS Wasp and the other ships in its amphibious ready group, along with elements of the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit and the Air Combat Element embarked on those vessels, are now in the eastern Mediterranean to help bolster America's force posture in advance of any Iranian or Iranian-backed attacks. The aircraft complement aboard Wasp includes F-35Bs, the vertical takeoff and landing version of that fifth-generation stealth aircraft. Additionally, a dozen U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor stealth fighters, another fifth-generation air-to-air platform, were flown from Alaska to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Secretary Austin also ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, already en route, to speed up to join Roosevelt as soon as possible. Of note is Carrier Air Wing 9 aboard Lincoln includes VMFA 314, a Marine Corps F-35C squadron, which is the carrier-based version of that fifth-gen stealth fighter. Just look at how the focus of traditional TV and print sources has changed over the last few months. The movement of U.S. Navy warships around Middle Eastern waters is the perfect example of this. Just when you think you understand what's going on, the situation changes. I'm sure you, like me, are frustrated with how wrong the media can be at times, so let me recommend something that I use as I work to get it right while creating current events episodes. Ground News. Let's take a look at one of the topics I'm teeing up in this episode, which is how the Pentagon has ordered a submarine and another aircraft carrier to the region. Ground News aggregates the articles on the topic, in this case there are 184 of them, and gives you a breakdown of the political bias, how factual they are, also based on ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations, and this is important, who owns each publication. When I'm doing episode research with Ground News, my first priority is choosing articles with high factuality. So in this case, I'll read this AP article at KSL, noting they're owned by Desiree Management Corporation and that the coverage has center bias. I'll skip this one by RT, noting it's state media with low factuality, and move on to another with high factuality. So here I'll read this one by The Hill, an outlet run by Nexstar Media Group, also with center bias. You can't get this kind of detailed breakdown at a glance anywhere else. Go to ground.news/Ward Carroll to stay fully informed. Subscribe through my link and get 40% off unlimited access, which is the Vantage plan that I use. The link is in the episode description, so check it out. The increased U.S. military presence in the region will be bolstered by the USS Georgia, a guided missile submarine capable of firing cruise missiles, although the Pentagon refused to say when the submarine would arrive on station. Roosevelt was moved from the Western Pacific after the Red Sea was left without an aircraft carrier for several weeks when the Eisenhower returned home after countering the threat posed to commercial shipping by the Houthis in Yemen for 8 months. Ike's departure caused a spike in Houthi attacks, which forced the Pentagon to order Roosevelt to the region. Now the heightened threat of Iran expanding the war has caused the Pentagon to sortie Lincoln from the Western Pacific to join Roosevelt. Lincoln's move from the 7th Fleet area of responsibility to the 5th Fleet AOR leaves the Western Pacific without a U.S. Navy carrier strike group, something a number of global security experts have sounded the alarm about in terms of the ongoing effort to limit China's military expansion in the region. Their concern has been intensified by recent movements of the Chinese aircraft carrier Shandong and 3 escorts in the Philippine Sea towards the outer reaches of what is known as the First Island Chain. The Shandong is China's first domestically built aircraft carrier and the second in service with the Chinese Navy. As we discussed in an episode last year, China's third carrier, the Fujian, is under construction and includes state-of-the-art electronic catapults instead of the steam catapults. The Shandong Carrier Strike Group includes the Type 55 destroyer Yan'an, the Type 52D destroyer Zhanjiang, and Type 54A frigate Yuncheng. There are signs that while the People's Liberation Army Navy has a long way to go to rival the capabilities of U.S. Navy Nimitz and Ford-class carriers, they are improving quickly. According to Japan's Joint Staff Office, during this at-sea period, Shandong conducted 240 fighter aircraft launches and recoveries over the course of a week while operating in the Philippine Sea, which is about 15 to 20% of what an American carrier does during normal flight operations, but a huge improvement on what they seemed capable of even a year ago. The Shandong Carrier Strike Group's current deployment to the Philippine Sea is the first one it has conducted this year, and the timing seems like more than a coincidence with the reduced American naval presence in the region. But the absence of an American aircraft carrier doesn't mean there aren't assets in the region dedicated to deterring China. Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyers Akebono and Kirishima and destroyer escort Jinsu have been shadowing the PLAN Carrier Strike Group. And Italian Navy carrier Cavour was in Darwin, Australia a few weeks ago with its air group participating in the Royal Australian Air Force's multinational Pitch Black 2024 exercise. Cavour has a mix of F-35Bs and AV-8B Harrier IIs embarked on the carrier for a total of 13 aircraft. Cavour was escorted by the frigate Alpino, and the Italian Air Force also sent 4 Eurofighter Typhoons, 4 F-35As, a single G-550 airborne early warning and control aircraft, and 3 KC-767 tankers to participate in Pitch Black. Great training for them and certainly a show of force for the Chinese. But while those assets are very capable, none of them have the striking power of an American aircraft carrier, of which there are currently 11 in the inventory. So why does the Pentagon simply send another aircraft carrier to the Western Pacific? Let's go around the horn and see where the rest are. The USS Ronald Reagan and the USS George Washington recently did a hull swap in San Diego that formally marked the changeover of the Navy's forward-deployed aircraft carrier in Japan. GW, which was previously based in Japan from 2008 to 2015, went through a 6-year RCOH, which is an acronym for Refueling and Complex Overhaul, a nuclear aircraft carrier's midlife maintenance period, before being homeported in Norfolk. That RCOH was challenging, delayed by COVID and other factors, and the working conditions in the shipyard that contributed to the suicides of 9 sailors on the crew. On its way to San Diego for the swap, GW sailed around South America. Reagan will now head to its new home port of Bremerton, Washington, and enter what is known as a Planned Incremental Availability, or PIA, maintenance period. The USS Carl Vinson just returned to its home port of San Diego after participating in the Rim of the Pacific, or RIMPAC exercise off of Hawaii. The USS Harry S. Truman, which regular viewers will remember Hoser and I were aboard at sea a few months ago, is currently on its final workup period off the East Coast and will be deploying later this year. Truman's RCOH was delayed for a cycle for scheduling and budgetary reasons, and it will enter the major overhaul period following the upcoming deployment. The USS George H.W. Bush went into a PIA maintenance period last December and won't come out until next year. The USS Nimitz just completed a 7-month PIA in Bremerton, Washington, and will deploy again later this year before starting the lengthy decommissioning process. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the lead ship in the newest class of carriers and another one we were aboard a few months ago, just returned from deployment and has entered its PIA maintenance phase, which should last about a year. The USS John C. Stennis went into its RCOH at Newport News in May of 2021 and is expected to return to duty sometime in 2025. And the pre-commissioning unit of John F. Kennedy, the second Ford-class carrier, is in the final phases of construction and expected to be delivered to the Navy next year. So of 11 aircraft carriers, 2 are currently operationally deployed, both in the Middle East region. 4 are in various forms of maintenance that would prevent them from deploying on short notice. 1 is still under construction, and 4 are between operational deployments but could be available in the event of a crisis. However, it's important to note that when not doing a PIA or RCOH, anytime a carrier is pierside, it's being worked on. And the science of coordinating their deployment schedules is something the Navy has learned and continues to learn the hard way. Like keeping an injured player on the field for an important game, deferring or skipping maintenance to send a carrier to sea comes with costs on the backside that include hazarding the performance of that carrier for the balance of its service life. The U.S. Navy has quite literally broken carriers by doing this wrong. As we've pointed out several times before on the channel, we had 7 carriers on station to fight Desert Storm in 1991, but it took years to get back to some semblance of a normal deployment cycle at a great cost to sailors and material along the way. Lots more on this topic going forward, including a sit-down with the commander of Naval Air Force Atlantic, Rear Admiral Doug Verissimo, from our booth at the Tailhook Convention in Reno next week. So if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you do not miss anything going forward. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.